Hector activates the bomb by ringing his bell. This time, Gus realizes the danger several seconds earlier than before. Panicked, he rushes out of the room, with Tyrus following close behind. As Gus opens the door and steps outside, the bomb detonates. Tyrus, still in the room, shields Gus from the blast with his body. Gus falls face down on the floor, with Tyrus's unconscious body landing on top of him. Though injured, Gus survives. Some nurses rush to his side, notice he's alive, and call for an ambulance. Gus, in shock, is unable to speak. Meanwhile, Walter hears on the radio that 2 people might have died at Casa Tranquila. He mistakenly believes Gus died along with Hector. Confident in his victory, Walter rescues Jesse, and together they destroy the lab. Skylar learns from the news that Gus survived the explosion and tells Walter. On hearing this, Walter has a mental breakdown, freezing in shock. He anxiously asks Skylar if she's sure Gus is alive. When she confirms, Walter, overwhelmed by panic, abruptly instructs her not to leave Hank's house and hangs up. Skylar, sensing danger, becomes increasingly worried. Walter rushes home to remove any evidence of his involvement with the bomb. Skylar, fearing for his safety, repeatedly calls to check if he's okay. Walter, however, is too shaken to offer any reassurances. His failed attempt to kill Gus has shattered his confidence, and he's unsure if he can face Gus again. He insists Skylar stays inside, but his tone is far from convincing. Hank, skeptical of the threat, demands the removal of their police protection, insisting he wants to investigate the recently blown-up laundry. Despite Skylar's attempts to convince him they are in danger, Hank is adamant. He also warns that the police can't protect them indefinitely due to budget constraints. Skylar and Walter Jr. head back home while Hank and Gomez proceed to the laundry. Walter calls Jesse, informing him that Gus is still alive and they are in immediate danger. He instructs Jesse to grab all his money and head to Sol's office. Walter does the same, gathering his money. After Walt hangs up, he is shocked when Skylar and Junior walk into the house. He pretends everything is fine in front of Junior, but once they are alone, he asks Skylar why they didn't stay at Hank's house. Skylar explains the situation, and Walter, in turn, reveals that Gus is trying to kill them and that his attempt to eliminate Gus failed. Hearing this, Skylar lashes out and demands that Walter leave immediately, believing that distancing herself from him might be the only way to avoid becoming Gus's target. Walter argues and, in a very unconvincing manner, assures her that he will handle Gus and keep them all safe. Skylar doesn't believe him. She threatens to call the police if he doesn't leave. Just then, Jesse calls Walter, asking if he's heading to Sol's office. Realizing he has no other choice, Walter grabs his money and leaves the house. Skylar, feeling just as cornered as Walter, clings to the fact that Walter confessed to being the main target. Now, she wrestles with how to explain Walter's disappearance to Hank and Junior. Meanwhile, Hank and Gomez investigate the remains of the super lab. Despite being absolutely convinced that Gus is a meth kingpin, Hank becomes frustrated when he finds no concrete evidence of meth production that can tie Gus to the operation. Gus holds a press conference, claiming he had no idea why there was a bomb in Hector's room. He carefully avoids lying, staying as vague as possible. During the conference, Hank yells, "You are a drug kingpin," and vows to find hard evidence and put Gus in jail. Hank also informs Gus that his super lab has been destroyed. Although Gus is initially shocked, he quickly realizes that without hard evidence, there are no criminal charges against him. He maintains his composure and pretends ignorance. He tries to garner sympathy by reminding everyone that he nearly died in the explosion and recently lost his friend Tyrus, then he leaves. Gus deduces that Walter likely destroyed the super lab since Gus had already kidnapped Jesse and the cartel didn't know the lab's location. Although Gus survived and faces no immediate charges, he is extremely frustrated. He was denied the satisfaction of killing Hector personally. He lost Jesse, Tyrus, and the lab. Plus, he now has to deal with both Hank and Walt. Walter and Jesse meet at Sol's office to discuss their predicament and remaining options. Sol suggests that it would be in their best interest to leave Albuquerque, at least temporarily. Walter rejects this idea, arguing that his family and Hank are in danger and they need to act. Sol counters that it's highly unlikely Gus would prioritize targeting Walt's family over dealing with the police and the remnants of the cartel. Furthermore, with the lab gone, Gus can't pay his associates, turning them into liabilities now that they are effectively unemployed. Hearing this, Walter becomes slightly more optimistic, thinking that there's still a chance he could come out on top. Even though leaving Albuquerque, even temporarily, isn't an easy decision for him, he ultimately agrees. Sol then contacts his associate in Santa Fe, informing him that he will have 2 guests arriving today. After word, they discuss crafting a cover story for Walter's departure. Walter considers using the narrative that his marital issues caused a mental breakdown and that he needs to leave for a while to clear his head. He shares this idea with Skylar over the phone, suggesting she use this excuse if Hank or Junior ask about his absence. With the plan set, Walt and Jesse head to Santa Fe, and that's where the episode ends.